On today's show, the LA Clippers bounce back from their loss to the Boston Celtics with a 1 point win over the Golden State Warriors, and it was a dramatic night at Intuit Dome, headlined by the career high of one Kobe Sanders. I'm going to be telling you how he stepped in for James Harden to get the Clippers a win on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 21 years, been covering the team on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for 6, and 4 right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell on YouTube to get us up to 8,000 subscribers before the end of January. And of course, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Clipper Nation, we're going to be talking about this big win against the Golden State Warriors in what was a dramatic game on Monday night that we won 103-102, even without James Harden. I'm going to be talking about how Kobe Sanders stepped into that James Harden role. And, I mean, you can't really replace James Harden, but he was able to do well enough last night to get a career high and lead us to a victory. And then an aggressive Kawhi Leonard who had to step up in his absence, and why ugly wins are important. Now, first, Kobe Sanders is the main takeaway from this game. We did not have James Harden, who was out with a shoulder injury. Now, obviously, we hope it's not anything too serious. But I talked about how are we going to bounce back from that defeat to the Boston Celtics. You know, we've won 6 games in a row. Then we got smacked in the face by the C's. How are we going to come back against the Dubs? And the Golden State Warriors, along with the Celtics and the Lakers, and you could even argue the Bulls, are one of the only teams that bring at least 35 or so % of their fans to the Intuit Dome. And it got pretty electric towards the end of that game last night when Steph Curry started making shots. Everybody that's only there for Steph Curry started getting really hyped. But the main thing to talk about for us is Kobe Sanders. He started in place of James Harden and had a career game. 20 points. That's a career high. To go along with 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Did, however, turn the ball over 3 times, but shot over 50% from the field, 9 for 16, 2 for 3 from downtown in 36 big minutes. And I thought it was amazing to see the way he was starting the game. In pick and roll, looking to create, looking to score, getting to his turnaround, getting to his up and under. You know, Kobe Sanders does a very good job of playing off 2 feet. You know, he doesn't travel. And I think, you know, playing off 2 feet can really prevent a lot of turnovers. It comes to a jump stop, turns, pivots, does that. So I think he does a very good job with that. But in addition to that, he does a really, really solid job on the glass. You know, that's something that we really could use more of, is guys taking pride in rebounding, or just guys that can rebound. And he did a pretty good job last night, to say the least, grabbing 7 of them. But 20 points on very efficient shooting for Kobe Sanders. Not all of them were wide open shots. You know, he's hitting turnarounds. He's hitting shots one-on-one. He's hitting pull-ups. He's hitting shots attacking closeouts. You know, I really like his ability that we've seen so far in his rookie season, or not even halfway through it, to be able to score from all 3 levels. Now, remember, Kobe Sanders is on a 2-way contract still. So he's played 27 games. I believe he can only play 50 of those games. So we need to get him converted into a standard contract very, very soon. Because right now he's still on that 2-way with the San Diego Clippers. He's too good for that, in my opinion. We definitely seem to have a player in him. he's a high IQ player. He doesn't make dumb decisions. As I've talked about, he's going to need to continue to improve making reads and pick and roll, and that stuff is going to come with time. But overall, I thought his defense was solid, and to lead us to a win with 20 points, in place of James Harden. With James Harden out, you're going to have to handle the ball a lot more. You're going to have to do a lot more shot creation. He stepped up to the plate and gave us a much needed lift to get us over the finish line in this game. And it was a 1-point game down the stretch. We almost pulled a classic Clipper choke. We were up the majority of the game. We're able to keep the Dubs at bay, no pun intended. And Steph Curry got hot in the fourth quarter, towards the end of the game, cut it down to 1. And then thankfully, we were able to get him fouled out of the game so that he couldn't close right when he was starting his Curry flurry. And we hung on by a thread. I mean, late in the game and really in the whole second half, the Warriors started doubling Kawhi, started blitzing him on pick and rolls, making sure the ball really got out of his hands. Jimmy Butler was the one that started on Kawhi in the first quarter. We saw them switching Quentin Post or Al Horford on a Kawhi in the first half. And then I think they were just like, because he started getting going. He had 8 points, 5 rebounds in the first. But they made sure later in the game that Kawhi Leonard wasn't going to be the one to beat them. And he wasn't. And no one else really stepped up in the fourth to make shots. Just for reference, we only scored, not only, but we scored 27 points in the fourth. The Warriors scored 38 points in the fourth. So they actually outscored us by 11 and got hot in the quarter and made things very interesting. But credit to us for getting the job done. I love a game where you need one stop to win it. And we did a good job clamping down, sitting down on Jimmy Butler on that last possession. Nicholas Batum, I believe it was, got a good hand up. And there you have it. You get the win. And Kobe Sanders was the main man, in my opinion, for this win. Career high. And it's just amazing, for me at least, I love to see the young guys thrive. I love to see a player that we drafted that we obviously didn't expect to get rotation minutes this year, and he definitely didn't expect to get rotation minutes this year, playing this well, trying to save this sinking ship from, losing its sail. And we want to get back into the play-in discussion. We've won 7 out of our last 8 games now, and Kobe Sanders has been a big reason why. His effort on defense was fantastic, whether it be in help. He was just awesome. He really was just awesome. Now, when I talk about guys weren't able to hit shots outside of Kawhi in the fourth quarter, Kobe Sanders was one of those guys. He scored 20 points through 3 quarters and didn't score in the fourth at all. But we'll take it. We get the job done. 103 to 102. We ended up shooting 48% from the field. The Warriors shot a putrid 38%. They also shot a terrible 24% from downtown. We shot 34%. And we shot 90% from the free throw line to their 81. So we shot better than them in every statistical category to get this win, 103 to 102. But coming up, going to be talking about how we almost lost the game, why I loved Kawhi Leonard's approach, and more on today's Locked On Clips. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I got to tell you a little something about Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. That's how simple Quo makes everything. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's quo.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Let me tell you something about the Everydayer Club. You get access to an ad-free audio feed for this podcast, Locked On Clippers, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. An invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. So check that out. All you got to do is go to lockedonclippers.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Clipper Nation, we got a good win against the Golden State Warriors, 103-102 at the Intuit Dome to finish off our 5-game homestand with a record of 4-1, with the only loss coming to the Boston Celtics. I think successful homestand, mission accomplished. I was able to go to every single one of the games except for the Pistons one, which is probably the best one of the 5 in terms of, yesterday was the best game, but that was the best one for a Clipper fan because of Kawhi Leonard's double nickel. But speaking of Kawhi Leonard, without James Harden, he's going to have to take another step up, right? Another leap in his aggression. And I thought he did just that. It wasn't the best shooting game for him. 0 for 8 from downtown, which, if you take away his 8 3-point misses, we were 10 for 21 from downtown. So the role players actually ended up shooting pretty well from 3 on Monday night. But Kawhi was 0 for 8 from downtown. I really don't think he shot any bad ones for my memory. The way he's been shooting from 3, you want him to be aggressive. You want him to keep shooting. But what I loved was 20-plus shot attempts. And I've talked about this at length throughout my years as the host of Locked On Clippers, or just being a guy that's covered the Clips online. When Kawhi Leonard is shooting 20-plus times per game, it is better for our team. Just his overall aggression level, being that clear-cut #1 option that we brought him here 7 years ago almost to be. It's what this team needs, with James Harden or without James Harden, but especially without James Harden. And I thought his approach was really good. He scored 8 points in the first quarter, was very aggressive. But what I love about, and Kawhi had a big-time dunk in the fourth. And I thought he could have been a lot better at handling double teams. I thought he made some very careless passes. There was one time he caught the ball with his back to the basket and wasn't even aware of the double coming behind him and lost the ball. There are definitely times where I think Kawhi can be better about getting rid of the ball when guys are open. I just think seeing the floor and passing is one of his weaknesses, and he doesn't have many, but I think it's one of his weaknesses. Now, as far as who he was starting guarding, he was starting on Draymond Green, and I don't think much came out of that to talk about. But Kawhi Leonard finished with 24 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks. He did have 5 turnovers, though, and that was the main reason why the Warriors were even able to get back in the game and why we started out a little bit slow. We had 5 turnovers in the first 2 minutes and 10 seconds of this game. Actually, it was 3 minutes and 10 seconds of this game. And we had 20 as a team. So thankfully the Warriors had 18. Oh, sorry. The Warriors only turned the ball over 7 times. So part of the reason why this game was even close was because we turned the ball over so much. We were just lucky that they were missing shots basically until the fourth quarter, Really, the second quarter and the fourth quarter were the only ones that they were hitting shots. They scored 19 in the first and 13 in the third, but they scored 32 in the second and 38 in the fourth. So it was a tale of 2 quarters being good for the Warriors offensively and 2 quarters being absolutely abysmal shooting the ball for them offensively. And I do think our defense mattered. I think our defense was good, but I don't think that it was insane. I don't think it was great. I think they also missed a ton of shots that NBA players and guys on this team, on this Warriors team, would expect to make. A lot of chippies, a lot of shots around the paint. So I was just like, as the game was going on, and I was thankful enough to be in row one of the swell, and it was the closest I'd ever been to seeing Steph Curry. Like, I've obviously seen Steph Curry live plenty of times, but that was the closest I'd ever been watching Steph Curry live. So that was pretty cool. But I was just thinking to myself as the game was going on, if they're going to continue to brick shots like this, we have to win. And the turnovers almost cost us the game. But when it comes to Kawhi Leonard, beyond the sheer 24 points on 25 shots thing, I think that when he's doing the little things, and in particular the rebounding aspect, leading our team in rebounds last night, 12 of them, that kind of dirty work, that's the kind of stuff that when you see that from your star player, it moves the needle. When he can get to doing the trench work, to doing the nitty gritty, the stuff that other guys don't want to do, that is when we become a much greater team. And that is when Kawhi Leonard becomes a true number one option, because even when his shot's not falling, he's affecting the game in a lot of ways. You already know you're going to get solid defense from Kawhi. You get double-digit rebounds in there, makes a huge difference. So for me, some might say Kobe Sanders player of the game. I think you can absolutely say he was the player of the game. But for me, it all starts and ends with Kawhi Leonard. When I blame him a lot when we lose, because I feel as though he carries the most responsibility, and I hold him to a very high standard of being one of the 10 best small forwards to ever play the game of basketball. I don't have a specific list, but he would be in my list or on my list. And so when we win a game and we don't have James Harden, you best believe I'm going to be giving Kawhi Leonard praise. I don't care that he shot 40% from the field. He was absolutely massive. Now, speaking of absolutely massive, Ivica Zubac started in this game. Of course, this was his second game back, and we went back to having him start over Brook Lopez. And we only went 8 deep in this game without James Harden. Nico Batum, Brook Lopez, and Jordan Miller were our bench players, and they scored a grand total of 15 points, whereas the Warriors, they go so deep, it's kind of insane. It almost feels like overkill. They played 12 different guys last night, and Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield and Pat Spencer weren't one of them. So the Warriors are very deep, but they have a lot of one-way players. Guys like Gary Payton Jr., who actually had a really good offensive game last night with 14 points on 70% shooting, but they have a lot of one-way players, and they're old. So it puts Steve Kerr in a tough position, but Steve Kerr got ejected last night, and it was pretty funny, and I do think that he had major claims to why he was mad. They didn't give Steph continuation. Personally, I haven't seen the replay of that yet, but I thought he flopped Steph and shouldn't have gotten the call at all, but the basket should have counted. But if you're going to blow the whistle, then you had to have given him the N1 because he got the shot off. And then Steve Kerr was irate because of a goaltend that wasn't called, and it was very clearly a goaltend by John Collins. And then they called a foul on Steph Curry. So if you're a coach and you're not getting calls, and then immediately the other team gets a call, that's very frustrating. So Steve Kerr lost his mind, ran up to the ref. I don't remember if it was Brian Forte or Justin Van Dyne or whatever his name is, and he got tossed real quick. And it was almost like Steve Kerr wanted to get tossed. For those that don't know, if anybody swings a fist, that's an automatic tech, right? So, and a coach knows that. So when a coach swings a fist, they're asking to be teched up, which Steve Kerr was. But then after he got teched up and he ran up to the ref, that was an ask to be ejected, to be honest with you. So, and you know what the funny part is? They ended up getting a lot of calls after Steve Kerr got ejected. But the biggest thing was Steph Curry getting fouled out. But Ivica Zubac, just going back to that real quick, this was much more like the Ivica Zubac that we're used to seeing. Really good work on the glass, got 11 of them to be exact, and got a double-double. Even though he still doesn't look fully up to speed, 10 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 2 turnovers in 33 minutes of play, 8 for 8 from the free throw line. How about that? That's something you really love to see if you're a Clipper fan, is Zoo making all his free throws. 1 for 3 from the field, though. My biggest takeaways are, yes, they were doubling a lot, but I had a very, very clear look right behind the basket at when Ivica Zubac posts up, and it is absurd the amount of contact that that other teams get away with him relative to what perimeter players get. I've said it over and over again this season, but last night was blatant. I was sitting right there. All they do is use 2 hands to push him. If you even touch SGA or James Harden or Norman Powell like that, they get foul calls. It's truly bad for the sport. It's completely unfair to Ivica Zubac. It discourages us from going inside. It discourages him from being aggressive. So yes, Zubac should be stronger with the ball. I think there were still some times where he was very weak with the ball, but it's absurd, and I'm very annoyed by it. But coming up, going to be talking about how we were able to get another solid third quarter and how that propelled us to the win, and also rounding it up, talking about the rest of the guys. Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Game Time. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everyone on their feet. I'll tell you, it was really special to be at the game last night, for example. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action. All right, Clippers winning at 103-102 against the Golden State Warriors to win their 7th game in the last 8. We are now 1-1 against the Warriors this season, with us winning the home game and losing the away game. This game was on national television. We started out really poorly this season on nationally televised games, and now we have started to compile a couple of wins on national TV. We are 9-9 at Intuit Dome so far this season through 18 games. I have been to 13 of them, and I have missed 2 of the most special ones with Kawhi Leonard's masterclass against the Detroit Pistons and his game winner against the New Orleans Pelicans. The game against Portland that I missed early in the season, I don't mind. And I missed a game against the Grizzlies that we got absolutely destroyed, which I don't mind. The other one I missed was against I don't even remember, to be honest with you. But let's talk a little bit about the fact that, ugly wins are good wins. We have struggled to get wins point blank this season. So you just got to go out there and get it done. You got to roll up your sleeves, find a way to clamp down, do whatever it takes, withstand the run that a team like Golden State makes. And you knew that eventually. I kept saying it in my vlog, which will be out on Tuesday afternoon. So go check that out. I heard from fans throughout the night. I was in row 1, so I got some great views. I got a great look at the build-up to Steve Kerr's ejection. So it was a good one. I was right next to the drum, like where Casey is in the swell. So it was definitely a different experience, for sure. But, I didn't go to the Denver game. That's the one I missed, where Jokic had 55. That's the one I didn't go to. But anyway, you got to get ugly wins, right? You knew that the Warriors were going to make a run. I kept on saying it, and they did. And we were able to withstand that. Something that was a huge problem for the Clippers early on this season that was costing us games was our performances in third quarters. And since then, we've really cleaned things up in that department. We've come out with a sense of urgency in third quarters with a concerted effort on both ends of the floor to make sure that we don't fall apart during the quarter. And I think that we've done a good job of kind of rectifying that problem with our team. And I think I don't really know what it comes down to, but effort and having the legs to sustain the energy in the second half. I think that's changed a lot. And it's funny because you might be thinking, well, when you're playing younger players, you're going to have more legs. We were playing these younger players when we were losing in the third quarters. So we outscored the Warriors 21-13, and that number 13 and the number 19 in the first quarter is very glaring, for them to be under 20 points. But I don't think the Warriors have very reliable three-point shooters. Draymond Green was just letting him fly. We'll live with that for sure. He was 0 for 6 from 3. Jimmy Butler was 1 for 4 from 3. Steph Curry was 4 for 15 from 3. Moses Moody was 0 for 3 from 3. Al Horford was 1 for 5 from 3. And Will Richard missed his only 3. So I don't think these guys are very threatening from downtown. When Steph Curry was out of the game, it was not very hard to guard them, and I got to give Kris Dunn a lot of credit. It takes a village to guard Steph Curry, but he did an incredible job fighting over screens and just chasing him around. And, there's not enough you can say about Kris Dunn. When he's not gambling, when he's playing solid defense, he's amazing for us, truly. And last couple of weeks, he's been the Kris Dunn that we know and love, and that's one of the best defenders in this league. He held Steph Curry to not every single shot. Steph Curry was guarded by Kris Dunn, but 27 points on 9 for 23 shooting. And we kept Steph Curry off the line pretty well, only 5 free throw attempts. So you got to give Kris Dunn a lot of credit. And then when it comes to coverages, we were always throwing Zoo or Collins or Lopez to the left. They were coming up to the level of the screen. So when Steph Curry was coming off screens, off or on ball, they made sure that they were trying to take away an immediate shot. And they did a very good job of that overall. Especially Zoo and Lopez being slower footed. That they could be exposed in that way with Steph Curry, top of the key, or on the perimeter. And they held their own. They did a pretty good job moving their feet. And John Collins, I think, did a really solid job contesting shots when he was coming off screens. So shout out to those guys, our bigs. And John Collins, we've talked about how much of an X factor he is for this team. He truly is the X factor. When he plays well, it changes the entire ceiling of this team. And one of the biggest reasons why we weren't good in the beginning of the season was because the guy that we traded for Norman Powell was completely underachieving. He was awesome again last night. 18 points, 4 boards, 1 assist, 4 blocks for JC. I thought our rim protection and help defense was just great team-wide. Even Brook Lopez got 2 blocks, and Collins shot 7 for 12 from the field, was active around the basket, and he was 3 for 5 from downtown, and talk about timely threes. 60% from 3, 1 for 3 from the free throw line is the only thing I have a problem with. But in the last 10 games, John Collins is shooting 57% from 3. So he has found his shot again. We saw that against Portland, and it's starting to look good. And get this, because of the most recent stretch of shooting 57% from 3, John Collins has now gone from shooting 27% from 3 on the season like 5 or 6 games ago to now he's shooting 37% from 3 on the season. He, just because of the last 8 games, has turned his entire season around percentage-wise. It's absolutely unbelievable. So that shows you that we're still young into the season. You can turn your averages around real quick. So shout out to John Collins, man. That's awesome. And then I thought we got a really solid boost from Jordan Miller as well last night. 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Was getting into the paint, making plays, knocked down an open 3. He was 1 for 2 from 3. Took Steph Curry to the rim. So 3 for 6 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and made both his free throws. 9 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, and a steal, and he was a plus 10 in 22 minutes. I think that's a really solid day's work for Jordan Miller. And then Kris Dunn, he continues to shoot super well. I thought he was fantastic on offense too. 16 points, 3 boards, 6 assists, 1 steal. Did turn the ball over 4 times though. On 5 for 7 shooting, 2 for 3 from downtown. and 4 for 4 from the free throw line. So Kris Dunn continuing to shoot so low from three is an unbelievable thing for the Clippers. And speaking of shooting well from three, Nico Batum shot 4 times, made 2 of his threes. And of course, all his shots were threes. And both of them came at the end of the first quarter. He had 6 points, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 assist, and 1 turnover. You just don't get the job done without Nico. And Brook Lopez was 0 for 4 from the field, and all his shots were threes. He had a donut, 3 boards, 3 assists. Thankfully, no turnovers to go along with a steal and 2 blocks. So again, I think Brook Lopez was serviceable, but I think the right call was made to put Zubac back in the starting lineup because this team runs with Zoo. 103-102 is the final. The Clippers win it by 1 point. And now we will go on the road to play the New York Knicks, one of the best teams in the league. And by the way, I don't think Lopez took smart shots either. But he contested shots well at the rim, I will say that. So anyway, big win indeed. And I was very happy to get it because those Warriors fans were getting too annoying. Warriors fans, a lot of them are just Steph Curry fanboys. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where a vlog of the game will be out on Tuesday. And of course, you can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, Locked On Clippers on YouTube, and hit the notification bell to get us up to 8,000 subscribers before the end of January. And of course, remember to sign up for the Everydayer Club for an ad-free version of this show. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.